Hello guys, this is Andrew Deng. In this lecture, I will talk about the Spring Bean definition. The objects that form the backbone of your application and that are managed by the Spring IOC container are called beans. A bean is an object that is initiated, assembled, and otherwise managed by Spring IOC container. These beans are created with the configuration metadata that you supply to the container. For example, in the form of XML definition, which you have already seen in the previous chapters. The bean definition contains the information called configuration metadata, which is needed for the container to know how to create a bean, the bean's lifecycle details, the bean's dependencies. All of the above configuration metadata translates into a set of the following properties that make up each bean definition. So the first property is called class. This attribute is mandatory and specifies the bean class to be used to create the bean. And the next is the name attribute. This attribute specifies the bean's identifier uniquely. In XML-based configuration metadata, you use the ID or name attributes to specify the bean's identifier. The next is called scope. This attribute specifies the scope of the object created from a particular bean definition, and it will be discussed in bean scope chapter. And the next is called constructor args. This is used to inject dependencies that will be discussed in subsequent chapters. The next is called properties. This is used to inject dependencies and will be discussed in the subsequent chapters. And the next is called auto-varying model. This is used to inject dependencies and will be discussed in the subsequent chapters. And a lazy initialized bean tells the IOC container to create a bean instance when it is first requested, rather than at the startup. So the next is called the initialization method. This is a callback method to be called just after all necessary properties on the bean have been set by the container. It will be discussed in the bean lifecycle chapter. And the last is called the destruction method. It is also a callback method to be used when the container containing the bean is destroyed. It will be discussed in bean lifecycle chapter. So the Spring configuration metadata is very important. The Spring IOC container is totally decoupled from the format in which this configuration metadata is actually written. Following are the three important methods to provide the configuration metadata to the Spring container. The first is an XML-based configuration file, and the second one is annotation-based configuration, and also there has a Java-based configuration. You have already seen how XML-based configuration metadata is provided to the container, but let's see another example of XML-based configuration file with different bean definition, including lazy initialization method and the destruction method. So here is the example that demonstrate the properties I mentioned before. You can check the Spring Hello World example to understand how to define, configure, and create Spring beans. We will discuss about annotation-based configuration in a separate chapter. It is intentionally discussed in a separate chapter as we want you to grab a few other important Spring concepts before you start programming with the Spring dependency injection with annotations. So that is for today's learning. Thank you for watching.